What's up, gang? Welcome back to another cool manga animation tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to change this manga panel from Vinland Saga to something like this. No, look again. It's not just a simple camera zoom out. We'll be covering hair animations, ocean animation, grass animation, and finally composition. This video is basically a 5-in-1 bundle. Before we start this video, take few seconds to hit the subscribe button, which will motivate me to post more. And turn notifications on so you won't miss my tutorials and possible future giveaways. Without wasting much time, let's jump right into the video. The first thing we are going to do is separate the background completely from the characters. We can do this within After Effects and do a little bit of painting, but you know, there's always a better way. Head over to firefly.adobe.com and scroll down to Generative Fill. Now upload the image. And yeah, before continuing this video, download this project file for free from the description. The project file contains the script file to animate hair and 4K upscaled manga panel which we are using here. Back to the video. After uploading the panel, click Expand in the left side panel. This will let us expand the image to whichever dimension we want. We'll choose 16:9, which is the standard landscape dimension. Then click Generate and wait for Adobe to do the rest. We got a banger expansion of this manga panel. Next up, click Remove from the left panel and start painting off both the characters. Once done, click Remove and you'll get the background image separately. And if you notice, the gravestone has some minor errors. But don't worry, we'll fix it within After Effects. Open our good old After Effects and create a new composition. As usual, we'll use the standard HD quality settings. Frame rate 60 and duration to how long you want your manga animation to be. Change background color to black so it'll look contrast to the white manga panels. Once you are comfortable with the settings, hit OK. Import our resources. To do this, right-click, hover to import, and import your files. Drag the main background without characters in it to the timeline and scale it. Now drag the main panel which contains the characters. I'll refer to the characters as Einar and Thorfinn. The one on the right is Thorfinn. Scale this layer as well. We'll hide this layer and focus on fixing the gravestone. Duplicate this layer by hitting Ctrl-Shift-D and rename the layers. We'll need gravestone separate from the grass layer because we'll be animating the grass. Now click the gravestone layer and mask the stone. Now select the grass layer and mask the grass region completely. Now drag the ocean image into the timeline. Drag it to the bottom because it's far behind in the scene. Mask the ocean alone and remove the white parts using Pin tool. Now we'll need a sky. Right-click here and hover over to New. Click Solid Layer and choose white color. Drag the sky to the bottom. Now is the time to fix the gravestone using a special tool called Clone Stamp Tool. So what is Clone Stamp Tool? We'll learn it now. What is a stamp in real life? You basically clone the color from the stamp ink and stamp it in a particular region. The design of the stamp could vary according to how it's designed. It's pretty much similar in After Effects. So you basically pick this Clone Stamp tool, clone a particular region and stamp it in another region to copy-paste the cloned region. In normal Paint tool, you can only choose one color at a time. But using Clone Stamp tool, you can copy an entire region and paint another region using it. I hope you guys got an idea of how it works. If confused, don't worry at all. When I do this in After Effects, you'll completely understand how it works. So in this scene, I'm going to clone the black rock region and paint off the grass region using it. Double-click the layer to get into the painting workspace. Let me tell you why painting isn't useful here. If I paint it using the nearby color, it's gonna stand out a lot, and yeah, you personally wouldn't like it. Even if you were a good painter, you'd need to keep changing colors and paint small regions, which is really time-consuming. So Clone Stamp tool works the best in this scenario. Pick Clone Stamp tool from above. Now hold Alt key on the keyboard and left-click on the region you want to copy. Now I've copied this region. Now slowly paint the grass present in the stone. If you guys notice here, while painting, the grass gets painted on again. Why is it appearing again if I have copied the rock region? Well, this tool copies the region and its surrounding together. So if you copy the region once and try painting everything with it, the tool will also copy the surroundings of the selected region. To prevent this, every time you paint off the grass, hold Alt key and click the black region again to paint more. You have to keep repeating this process until you paint off all the grass completely. And note, every time you paint off a lot of region to black, the clone stamp would keep copying the surroundings, and you can paint more freely without getting the grass appearing again. I explained this as easy as possible. Our background layers are now ready. Now it's time to mask our characters. First step before masking is analyzing the number of body parts which we'll animate. Look at this panel. We'd need to animate Thorfinn and Einar's each hair strands, their mouth, both of their hands shaking. So we'd probably need a couple of layers for hair strands. Select this layer and press Ctrl plus Shift plus D to duplicate the layers as many times as you want. As I said in my previous tutorials, the more parts you want to animate, the more layers you need. I'm going to speed up this part where I just duplicate the layers and rename each one. Now it's time to begin masking. Pick Pin tool from above and start masking each layer separately. Don't forget to choose another layer while masking out the next part. Don't mask everything within one single layer. I have explained masking process in detail in my previous tutorials. You can check out my playlist, which will be displayed as card, or you can find it on the description of this video. I'll speed up the masking parts as well. Notice here, I'm not masking Thorfinn's right hand and Einar's right hand. Instead, I've created a layer where I'll mask both their hands shaking in a separate layer. According to the panel, you'll have to think how it works. You'll understand during animation phase why I didn't separately mask both hands in a separate layer. I'll mask this layer in the end so I can explain better. I'm masking other layers. So we are finally masking their hands layer. Follow me on how I'm masking them. While you mask Thorfinn's right hand, his hand is behind Thorfinn's body, so you just have to assume that the hand exists and mask this way. We'll paint it after. I noticed some masking errors in Einar's head. Basically, I forgot to mask few hair strands because there were too many. I'm just duplicating one of the layer, removing its previous mask and masking the hair strands. Now is the time for painting off unnecessary and overlapping elements. Why do we need painting? What are the basics of painting? I've covered all of this in my previous tutorial, which is also linked in the description. Most of you wouldn't need to know the basics because it's pretty simple. I'll start from the first layer. It's Thorfinn's ponytail. The ponytail lies behind his body, so while masking we've obviously covered his body as well. We'll be painting off the body from the ponytail. I'm using Clone Stamp tool for this. You may use Paint tool if you're good at painting. As soon as you complete painting, the ponytail will come in front of the body. This is because the ponytail layer is at the top. To fix this, drag the layer below Thorfinn's upper body. Next layer where painting is necessary is Thorfinn's head layer. We've masked his hair strands separately, so the hair shouldn't be present in the head. If you ask why it shouldn't be present, you should again check out my basic tutorials. Now we'll paint off mouth and hair strands from Thorfinn's head because we've already masked them separately in individual layers. And next up, we'll paint off Thorfinn's left hand from his upper body again because we've already masked his left hand separately. Previously, I told you to assume that Thorfinn's left hand exists while masking. So now we've to paint the body out from his hand. So even when the hand moves from the back, the hand will look complete without the upper body coming along with it. We've masked Thorfinn's belt separately, so I'm painting it off from the lower body as it also exists in lower body. You might wonder, what if I just don't paint it? Well, when animating, you'll be animating the belt layer and not the lower body layer. So obviously when you try to move the belt, you'll find another belt which will appear on the lower body. We obviously don't want it. This is the reason we are painting off the masked elements from other layers. Watch this video. It's linked in the card where I've demonstrated the problem which will occur if we don't paint them off. Back to the tutorial, after painting off the belt, we'll also paint off his left hand which is already masked separately. Do this exact same painting process for Einar. I'll be speeding up this part. If you get a problem midway, feel free to mention the timestamp of this video and ask your doubts. I'll be happy to help. Again, I forgot to mask some of his hair strands. I'm creating few more layers, removing its previous mask and creating mask for other hair strands. Hey gang, congrats if you made it till here. You are one of the top 5% who managed to complete masking and painting. If you find this tutorial really helpful and easy, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and turn the notifications on real quick, or you might never find my channel ever again. We are gonna use AFP hair rig script file for animating the hair and belt. Well, I made a detailed explanation about this already on my previous tutorials, but I'll teach you again here. This script file will automatically add a free flow movement. Before watching any further, download the free project file from description. I've linked this script file along with it. If you've downloaded the project file, let's get into the animation part. First off, I'm going to use the script file to animate their belts. I'll teach you how to use the script file. Pick Puppet Pin tool from above. Select the belt layer, and key points like this. Now select the layer again. Press U on the keyboard to open keyframes. Deselect the keyframes which we don't want to move. Obviously, the base of the belt won't move during a wind, so the script file will ignore the deselect pins. Once you deselect the pins, click the layer. Hover over to File. Hover over to Scripts. Click Run Script File. Now select the script file which is in my project file. A small setting box will pop up. Ensure that Puppet Pins is selected and hit Run. You get a beautiful free flow movement. We'll be doing this exact same process for each hair strand. I'm doing this exact same procedure for Einar's belt layer. Before animating hair strands, we'll animate both of their hands shaking. It's pretty easy. All you have to do is set up pins and move them manually. You can move it depending on your preference. I'm speeding up this part. After fixing pins, move few seconds apart on the timeline and make your movement. This will create a keyframe. Select all keyframes and press F9 on the keyboard to ease them. You won't need Graph Editor for this because I want the handshake to be a normal loop. If you guys want to add a speed ramp to their handshake, you can use Graph Editor. Alright, we are finally ready to animate the hair strands. Let me tell you what happened to the timeline. If I open Einar and Thorfinn pre-composition, you can see that all of Einar and Thorfinn's layers are within it. There are two more pre-composition within here. One is Thorfinn's head. This pre-composition contains all of Thorfinn's head layers, which consists of all his hair strands. How to pre-compose them. If you are following up till here, you'll see all the layers stacked up on your timeline. Do these steps properly. First, select all of Thorfinn's head layers, including his ponytail, mouth, and hair strands. Right-click and pre-compose them. Make sure this option is selected. Once done, do the exact same procedure for Einar's head layers. Now you'll have two pre-composition in your timeline. Now select all the layers except background layers and pre-compose them into Einar and Thorfinn pre-composition. You'll now see the timeline which I'm seeing. If you guys face issues or doubts here, feel free to comment them down and I'll guide you. Or if you guys have no idea about pre-composition, watch my previous tutorials which is beginner friendly. I mean, this video is already beginner friendly, but you know, there's always an easier version. Once you achieve this timeline, we can start animating hair strands. Go into Einar's pre-composition and start animating hair strands. We'll do the exact same thing which we did for their belt layers. First, fix puppet pins like this. Select the layer and hit U on the keyboard to open keyframes. Now remove the base pin which isn't supposed to move. Now select the layer. Hover over to File. Hover over to Scripts. Click Run Script File. Select the script file which I've attached along with the project file. And in the pop-up box, make sure that puppet pins are selected and click Run. You get a cool animation now. Do this exact same process for every hair strand. I'm speeding up this process. Finally, I'm animating the mouth layer. Just fix puppet pins and move few seconds apart on the timeline and make your movement. You can use Graph Editor to get a speed ramp. Einar's pre-composition is animated successfully. Do this exact same process in Thorfinn's composition. I'm fast-forwarding this part as well. If you get any doubts midway, feel free to mention the timestamp of this video, and I'd gladly help. This is the results so far. Yes, I've added a small head rotation as well. Just select the pre-composed layers and hit R on the keyboard to bring rotation animations. You can check my previous tutorials for detailed explanation. I'm gonna animate Thorfinn's left hand as well. Just gonna give a small movement towards Einar. It's finally time to learn new stuff. So far in our tutorials, we've learned how to animate hair, how to animate eyes, how to animate mouth, how to animate fights, and so on. In this tutorial, we'll learn two new things: learning to animate water and grass. Let's start with grass. Select the grass layer. Head over to the Effects and Presets bar. Search for Turbulent Displace and add it to your grass layer. Make sure Turbulent is selected. Now add a keyframe in Evolution and move few seconds apart on the timeline. Move a little far so we can easily adjust the grass movement. I will explain how Turbulent Displace works in future tutorials. The main topic of this video is to teach you camera movement, and this video is already 20 minutes long. You can play around with the settings to see how Turbulent Displace works. You can add fast movements to the grass too, but I'm going to keep a mild motion. It'll be blurred during camera movement, so not going to put a lot of effort on it. You can also tweak the amount of turbulent and its size. Don't increase them a lot. Honestly, it'll look weird. We've animated the grass. Now I'll teach you how to animate water. You may use same turbulent for water, but there's an easier way. Don't forget this step. First, pre-compose water layer. Because this technique I am going to teach you involves blending one layer to another, so you need to have this layer pre-composed. Make sure this second option is selected and hit OK. Now right-click here. Hover over to New. Click Solid Layer. Change the solid layer to black and hit OK. Make sure the solid layer is above the ocean layer. Now go to Effects bar and search for Fractal Noise and add it to the solid layer. I'm hiding other layers so we can focus on the water layer. So in this settings, open Transform subsettings by clicking this small arrow mark. Change the scale to 50. Now make sure you are at the start of the timeline. Add a keyframe and offset turbulence, and initially change this value to right. This should make the fractal go down. Then move few or more seconds apart on the timeline. Now adjust the value again so that the fractal goes up. Once done, select the ocean layer. Go to the Effects bar and search for Displacement Map. Add it to the ocean layer. Now pre-compose the solid layer and name it Fractal or whatever you wish like. Now all you have to do is change the layer to Fractal. So basically the fractal layer's movements get displaced into the ocean layer. This is the purpose of Displacement Map, at least in this case. Now the water will have a cool movement. You can further make it realistic the horizontal and vertical displacement value, but I feel that the current animation looks good. As I said, I'll make a separate tutorial covering all of this in detail so you can build advanced water animations. And of course, if you don't see the water, hide the fractal layer. We use the fractal layer only for displacement purpose, so hide it by clicking the eye icon. Let's do a little composition in this video. Again, I won't be teaching you about composition much because I've already made a separate video about composition. You can check out the video which is available on my channel. Here I'll be doing little composition and we'll use the Looks plugin for rest of the color correction. If you don't have Looks plugin, no worries. I'll start by compositing without using the plugin, and I suggest you watch my composition tutorial before completing. If you have Looks plugin already, you can continue the video, or if you don't want to do composition at all, you can go to the next timestamp where I cover 3D camera movements. Now in our current scene, the first thing which looks odd is the water. It's colored while other layers are black and white. So we'll change the water to black and white. Select the ocean layer. Head over to Effects bar and search for black and white and add it. You won't need to change the settings. And again, gang, to most of them who don't want to do composition after this can directly go to 3D camera movement. People like me who prefer a bit of color correction can stay and watch the upcoming effects I add. Okay, now the sky looks kinda dull with no details. I've attached Cloud PNG along with my project file. Import it and add it into the timeline. Scale it and duplicate it if you want more number of clouds. Let's give a small position animation to the clouds. Select all cloud layer. Hit P on the keyboard to open position. Make sure you are at the start of the timeline and create a keyframe. Move few seconds apart on the timeline and move the clouds horizontally. Now select all cloud layer again and hit T on the keyboard to open opacity. The clouds look dark and takes too much of attention. Reduce the opacity to your preference. So for the people without the Looks plugin, I'll give you some possible ways to composite it. Create an adjustment layer by right-clicking here. Hover over to New and click Adjustment Layer. Now hover over to Effects bar and search for Lens Flare and add it to the adjustment layer. You'll have 3 default lens type you can choose from, and you can adjust the flare center. If you guys want to give a colored CC to it, create a new solid layer. Change it to green, which is the color of the grass. Now pick the pen tool and mask like this. Now open this arrow mark. Open masks, and tweak with masks feather and opacity to manually do color composition. I'll be removing these solid layers because I'll be using Looks plugin for composition. Alright, so gang, if you have Looks plugin, go ahead and add it to your adjustment layer, and head over to its workspace. Add exposure, gradient, diffusion, lens vignette, haze/flare, atmospheric flare, LUT, hue/saturation, mojo, and color blend. We'll be removing some of these because we might not need them. Head over to exposure. Change it to down 1 step. Delete gradient. It doesn't really fit in. Move on to diffusion. My personal favorite is pop hits. You might try in other presets and choose one. Go to lens vignette and choose healthy dose. I'm deleting color blend. You can choose any of the presets here in haze/flare. I'm deleting atmospheric flare. Hue/saturation wouldn't be useful either because our panels are black and white. In Mojo, you can choose any of your favorite presets. Everything would look really good. I'm sticking with Caravan because it gives a historic vibe which matches the manga as well. Finally, choose a LUT of your preference. The color correction looks beautiful to me. As I said previously, I'm removing the green solid layers. I used to explain color composition without the usage of Looks plugin. Once you guys are comfortable with the composition, we are ready to move to the final part, the camera. This is the final part. Camera is a very huge concept. You can pretty much do everything using camera, but I'm gonna teach you the most basic camera movement, a 3D zoom out. Let's jump straight to learn how to make camera movement. Right-click here, hover over to New, and click Camera. You don't have to modify any of this settings. Just make sure you are using 2-node camera and hit OK. And you can see a warning that tells us camera and lights do not affect 2D layers. This is exactly my next point. I'll tell you how camera works. So the camera layer considers only the layers which are 3D. It simply ignores other 2D layers. So what we are gonna do now is select all the layers which we have on our timeline. Basically all the layers which we want to consider within the camera. You don't have to choose adjustment layer because it doesn't have any subject in it. It's simply a composition layer. And I didn't select sky as well. You can do it if you want. The sky is just a static solid layer in the background. There's no point in moving it. Once you select all layers, click this cube icon to apply 3D to all of our layers. Similarly, add this tiny circles as well. This is called motion blur, which you'd have seen in video games. As soon as you make them 3D, you'll get 3-dimensional axis like this. To understand better, click this and choose 2 view. Alright, now notice here carefully. The left is the camera's view. I mean, if you start recording on a camera, the stuff you'd see inside the camera's display. It's on the left side. And this small square that's present on the right side view. It's a third-person view. Imagine that you are holding the camera, which is the small square. Now, if I select the camera layer and open position settings, instead of 2 values, you'd see 3. In a 2D layer, you can only move position 2 ways, either in the x-axis or in the y-axis. But in 3D layer, there exists another axis, which is Z. Let me change the Z value. Can you notice the camera moving towards the characters? If I put this in simple terms, the Z-axis will make the camera go towards the scene and vice versa. Some editors might ask, bro, why do I even have to use a camera when I can just pre-compose all the layers and use scale to zoom out? That's a valid question. Well, now when I've zoomed in, you'll see that the characters are blurred. So the camera automatically focuses the gravestone while blurring the characters. This cannot be achieved by normally scaling up your whole composition. Another problem is, if you try scaling it, the quality of the panel will be lost. But in camera, the quality stays the same. I'll show you what the Y-axis does when I change its value. You can notice that the camera is now looking down, and if I move X-axis, it'll move sideways. Here's a representation of how the camera moves according to the axis which you move. That's pretty much basics of how camera works. Let's get into animating our 3D camera zoom out. It's pretty easy. All you have to do is place a keyframe in the start of the timeline and zoom in the camera towards the gravestone. Now move few seconds apart on the timeline and zoom out. Select all keyframes. Press F9 on the keyboard to ease them. Go to Graph Editor and use this following graph if you want a speed ramp. We got a smooth 3D zoom out. Now if you want to make it even more cinematic, we'll make it look this way. When the camera is focusing the gravestone, the ocean will have no blur. After the camera zoom outs to focus the characters, we'll blur out the ocean and the gravestone as well. Select the ocean layer. Go to the Effects panel and search for Gaussian Blur. Add it to the layer. Create a keyframe in blurriness and initially let it be 0. Move few seconds apart on the timeline and adjust the blur. You can again select the keyframes, ease them, and use speed ramp graph. Now do this same thing for the gravestone, but well, it won't be as blurry as the ocean if you see it in a cinematic way. So adjust it accordingly. And all of that hard work gets us this beautiful manga animation. If you guys managed to get till here, congratulations for being the top 1%. If you are confused or stuck midway, feel free to drop the timestamp of this video where you are stuck and explain your query. I'll be happy to help. If you want more specific help, you can join my Discord server. Link is in the description. And again, I've uploaded few more manga animation tutorials covering basics. Go ahead and check out my playlist. If you guys want to see more such tutorials in the future, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and turn the notifications on. Subscribers are my motivation to edit such long videos. Well, that's it for today's tutorial. Until the next video, this is Roni, signing off.